it's Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. So today's question is, how can kink help you get in touch with traumas that are stored in your body? I did a little one of these a little while ago it's entitled, How is Trauma Stored in the Body? So that's kind of, if you're a little lost, maybe go check that one out and then come back, because that lays out a little bit more what I'm talking about foundationally here. But kind of premise here is that your brain and body are linked. Your body has memories that, especially traumatic memories like repeat feelings, sensations, chemicals get released that are related to triggers or things that you might not remember have happened in your body. And PTSD is the interruption of the cycle of completing that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, trauma response, like crisis response part of the brain. So that's kind of the background. That's where we start here. I do want to be very, very clear. Kink is not therapy. And, art is not therapy. Music is not therapy. These things can be therapeutic when done in a way that is in companionship with good practices of mental health and healing. But I do want to say that this is not something where I'm suggesting that this is therapy. For me, kink is very much something that I do on my own for fun and that I have found useful in getting in touch with some feelings that I then can process through my therapy with my professional help, professional medical help. So yeah, with that disclaimer out there. So one thing that is frustrating when you have PTSD, or for me at least, it's been very frustrating, is that you have these sensations, these tensions, these things that go on with your body that you don't really understand because you don't know where they are linked to and where they come from. Or maybe you do, but they still just keep coming up. Like, for example, for a while I had this pain in my shoulder that I just kept getting, or this pain in my wrist that I just kept getting. Psychosomatic pains. And, there's a lot of jokes out there about psychosomatic pain, but it's real. Your brain can make you hurt by causing you to tense certain muscles in certain ways to cause you pain. Other ways too, but that's the primary way for me. So yeah, I would get it if I got a pain and I don't know how to trace that pain. Sometimes guided meditation works for that. Sometimes through that kind of process, you can figure out what's going on and do exercises like talk therapy exercises to get past it. But for some of this stuff, especially the more serious kind of trauma memory stuff, I found that it wasn't getting all the way there, but it was close. So one thing I discovered when I started doing kink, to my great surprise, was that playing with some of these things that are edgy and dangerous and scary, especially the scary stuff, putting myself in a situation that was scary, where I was role-playing or pretending to do things that were similar to the trauma that I experienced as a kid, or playing with the same sensations in the body. So maybe not similar to my actual experiences, but generating similar sensations in the body. Like, for example, the wrist pain, like getting grabbed by the wrist by a sexual partner, a play partner, in a situation where I'd negotiated, where it was safe and they knew what I wanted and we had all the boundaries set up and I could safe word at any time or just say no, and that was expressly discussed and understood. But having that experience of somebody grab me by the wrist and pull me, that release, it was intentionally triggering myself is what it was. I was intentionally triggering that PTSD. And so by intentionally triggering that PTSD in that moment, I was in a place where I was experiencing the things in my body that were related to that old experience, that old trauma, and that cycle that hadn't concluded. But in a role play scenario where I could then go through the motions of completing that cycle. And doing those things repeatedly have helped train my brain for specific triggers, for specific things that are symptoms in my body, have helped train my brain to complete the cycle when I'm triggered in those ways. So I'm going with this analogy, and this is it's one of those where this is what I'm thinking of right now. So that's what I'm telling you about. But going with this analogy, so having multiple scenes where a play partner is grabbing my wrist and pulling me forcefully into a situation, and then I'm feeling that like fight, flight, freeze stuff in my body, and then enjoying the situation of having this fun, sexual, playful like connection, and then moving from the scene, which is for me is usually like role play or aggressive or pretend, basically adult pretend. So moving from the adult pretend and the super elevated like body stuff of all of the stimulation into the aftercare of wow, that was so much fun, that was beautiful, and all of those nervous system calming chemicals that wash through that complete that cycle and get back to a regulated state, like doing that. So creating a situation where I'm going through that safely has now created a situation where I don't feel pains in my wrist anymore, where I don't have that trauma response because my body starts to tighten up with that like that trigger. Like I encounter something in my daily life that triggers my PTSD in that specific way and wants to trigger that specific pain. And instead of it becoming pain, my brain now knows how to process that and how to complete that cycle so that it doesn't become pain, so that it's a moment of, and then it's gone. Again, I have had extensive therapy with professionals in complex PTSD who have tons of experience with this. And I'm not saying that everybody who tries this is going to know how to process that. And there is a risk when you start intentionally working on trauma triggers of re-traumatizing yourself, of making that trauma worse if you're not paying attention to what you're doing and careful. And I would highly advise like researching this before you try it and talking to other people who've done it. And for myself, I really think therapy is very important, because if your underlying mental health condition is not being effectively treated, then it does significantly increase your risk of making it worse by intentionally exposing yourself to a trigger. But if you're ready and you know how to work through triggers when they happen, and you feel like you've got good coping mechanisms for that, you feel like you've got a good support system, ideally, you might even have a therapist who's on board with this idea, or at least neutral to it and willing to process stuff with you through that. Then, for me, I've found that it has allowed me to resolve triggers that I otherwise don't think I would have been able to resolve. It's allowed me to, I wouldn't say cure the PTSD. I don't think that's the goal. I don't think that happens, but it's allowed me to greatly reduce my symptoms of certain kinds of triggers. Again, in conjunction with therapy, in conjunction with the other tools that I have learned through my practice of managing my condition. It's allowed me to heal in ways that I didn't think were possible before. So it's one person's experience. I certainly don't think this is going to be the experience of everybody, but it was certainly a pleasant surprise for me to discover this. And I would be very curious about anybody else's experiences with this, and if anybody else has experienced similar things with not even just kink specific, but just in terms of like things held in the body and tools that have allowed you to help release those things and weaken the hold of those trauma triggers over your life. So if you feel like sharing, please do. I would love to hear about that. So thank you very much for listening. This is Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. You can ask me your questions by emailing me at kinkyqueerslut@gmail.com. Thanks very much and have a great day. Proud Poly Kinky Queer Slut is art. It is made for entertainment purposes only. I am not a subject matter expert on any of the topics discussed. Please do not rely on anything presented here as fact. Think for yourself, do your own research, make your own decisions. To submit a question, please email kinkyqueerslut@gmail.com.